here's the thing. I say this, and I do believe it. It's just I was just too stupid and too stubborn to quit. When I discovered the craft of acting, I came to it very late. It was university, in fact, and my parents, immigrant parents, they said to me I could be five things: doctor, lawyer, teacher, engineer, or a failure. So you choose. And so they were not thrilled when I decided, I'm going to apply for the drama program.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Today's guest is simply great. I love Paul's building each other up mindset, along with sharing in the positivity as opposed to the negativity. It is simply captivating and contagious. Paul is also humble, self-aware, engaging, and conscious. It was a real treat to have this chat with him, and I'm excited to share it with you all. So let's get into it. Paul Sun-Hyung Lee is an award-winning actor, writer, and comedian. He is best known as Appa on the hit show Kim's Convenience. Paul received fan and critical acclaim globally, winning 4 Canadian Screen Awards in the Leading Comedic Role category, as well as a nomination for the role from the Seoul International Drama Awards, twice nominated for the Dora, Mavor Theatre Award for Outstanding Performance, and winner of the prestigious Toronto Theatre Critics Award for Best Actor. Paul continues to pursue excellence both on stage and on screen. As an avid Star Wars fan and collector, Paul was thrilled to join the universe in The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and Ahsoka as X-Wing fighter Captain Carson Teva for Disney+. Next up, Paul joins the cast of Netflix's live-action version of Avatar, The Last Airbender, as the beloved Uncle Iroh. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot. We chat about his famous toy collection, rejection, being excellent, dealing with trolls, imposter syndrome, Kim's Convenience, upbringing and leaning into his culture, success later in life, play and fun, why being a nerd is cool, and of course, failure. Before we get into this chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny and Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out every Monday at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, with the video to follow the following day. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's epic episode. I want to know, looking at the background of your beautiful house or the beautiful room, I'd love to know, what does your toy collection ignite in your soul?
Oh my God. That's how much time do we have on this? I've always loved toys from when I was obviously when you're a child, you play with toys and stuff. What I love about my toys is it sparked my imagination, because it's a continuation of storytelling and playtime, seeing things. I mean, as adults, toy collectors have this one saying, a show is a hit when you look at it and go, oh, I want a toy of that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I want to play with that. I wish I had that car, or that ship, or those characters. And when I was a kid, because my parents were immigrant parents and they were working all the time, and it was just my sister and I often, just to sort of fend to it for ourselves, I just loved playing with toys, because it would just create these little worlds. And it just kind of manifested itself later on as I got older too, and I became an actor. Growing up, I still, some of my favorite toys are the ones that were gifted to me from my parents, and I played with my toys. I played hard with them. I was not a collector.
Yeah.
I did not put things, mint in box, put them away and save for a rainy day. These things got ripped open. They got played with. The paint got chipped off. They got thrown. They got buried. They got all these different things, because that's what they were meant to be used for.
Yeah.
Now, as you get older, sometimes your perception sort of shifts a little bit. I still open my toys. I still play with them. And it's one of those things is it's like you don't stop playing with your toys because you get old. You get old because you stop playing with your toys.
I love that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've started, as I got older, your perceptions shift. You don't play with them as much, but you find different ways of enjoying your toys, making dioramas, posing them in different ways, just looking at the craftsmanship in terms of making it, or like building a display that has a bit of a wow factor. And, then you start looking at other collectors and comparing, going out, making friends with other people who toy hunt,
cool.
and things like that. There are literally, there are hundreds, thousands of communities that are of these toy collectors and traders and stuff. And people get together and they celebrate that sort of love for toys. And it's something that I really, really like because, I started a YouTube channel during the pandemic, and it was an unboxing channel, and I unboxed toys, and that's how it all got started. And the community of people that were sort of drawn to it and were watching it and stick around, and they form friendships within each other.
Oh, that's wonderful.
In the forums. Yeah. And so like, that's an incredible community. And what I love is they are so kind and they are so supportive. And it is like the best of the internet. Fans get often misaligned by the media. They're skewed. The whole stereotypical portrayal of a toy collector or a fan is somebody who is unwashed, who is antisocial, who goes and has poor interpersonal skills, and like is a horrible troll on the internet and a gatekeeper and judgy and this and that. There are people like that for sure, but that is not the norm. That is not like, those are outliers. Those are like, the extreme examples. And unfortunately, media loves to focus on that. They'd love to slap that label on you collect toys? Ooh, you're weird. Yeah. Right? And it's like, no, you're not. It's like a hobby, like anything else, right? What makes that any more different than going, hey, I play golf. That's your hobby? Don't you think that's weird? You walk around on a cart, you walk around with a stick, swinging at a ball, swearing at it, getting drunk.
And getting so angry afterwards.
Exactly. Well. Right? But that's more socially acceptable because it's an adult thing. It's like you're playing a game. Pickleball. Dude, that's like a huge thing now, right? It's ping pong with like on a full-size court, basically, with a bigger ball. And so like it's those things where what I love about my community is we don't yuck your yum. You like this? Awesome. If I don't like it, that's cool. Like it's not going to affect me if you like something and I don't. How does that have an impact on me, right?
Yeah.
And the community that we've built, which I love, is like that. And so like that's the kind of community I wish media would focus in on, the generosity, the kindness, the spirit of that community. And so that's an extension of the toys for me, the like-minded people, because playing with your toys is cool when you're alone, but it's way more fun when you have friends.
Oh,
all play.
That's
right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It changed.
So,
I know, go on.
No, and that's it. It's like some of the best times I had when my friends came over and like, oh my God, and they would bring their action figures or their toys. Like, oh God, you're going to bring the Falcon? Yes. And you would like just go and play and create these huge, crazy things. And it was just like, I don't know. You don't, there are things in our youth that we forget about, that we lose touch on because we have to grow up and we have to be responsible. And that's cool too. I get that. It's important. But to lose that sense of fun,
yes,
that sense of play, I think is sad.
We
need to encourage that.
We are on the same page. Play and fun is the name of the game. I want to pigeonhole that because like 10,000 points stream through my mind. You're right about, so I had one friend, for example, he has a massive toy collection. He might even have, I assume you have Pez, Pez,
oh yeah, the Pez sticks.
I think he's got like one of the largest Pez collections in the world. He's got Lego. He's got a lot of things. And he is the coolest guy. And this is not to, just to describe him. So to go with what you're saying, like he's ripped. He loves these like fighting. a massive nerd in a positive way. And you would have never have thought that someone like him would be so invested in toys. And when you first told me many years ago, you know, your eye rolls because you've been like programmed by, you've got an opinion that's not actually yours. And then within like half a second, like, oh, this is so cool. I've got a very mini toy collection. I think it's the best in the world. And a few podcasts ago, I don't know if you know this gentleman, but we had Todd Stashwick on the podcast. And I know it's not
I
quite.
love Todd.
Oh, okay, amazing.
He's amazing. He's incredible.
Yeah, fantastic chat and human. And not that I had opinion on this whatsoever, but he changed my perspective on Dungeons and Dragons. And I know it's not quite the same, but he played it as a kid, and then he thought, you know, as you become an adult, you kind of put it to the side, and now he's embraced it, and he's got a massive community. It brings him a lot of joy and fun, and it was so exciting for me to hear it because it's something that he played with as a kid. And then as we become adults, we think we have to be more serious and lose the play and the fun. But he kind of came to the realization, I'm simplifying that, no, I'm an adult. I can still play and have fun. And it's created an amazing community. And it's you know, it's exactly what you're doing as well.
100%. Yeah.
Isn't it so nice that when you can embrace the best of people? And I know that you're big on building people up as well. You do it in your YouTube channels and you do it in social media. Has that come from this community, or is it a value that you've, you know, had for a long time?
No, you know, it's something that I've had for a while. Not all the time, though. Not all the time. I mean, this is something that, as a younger actor, you know, I used to be very a bitter Asian dude, right? I was very, very angry because of the lack of opportunities that I perceived I was getting because of the color of my skin. And, you know, I would be, for lack of a better term, like jealous of other people because I got work, or just like really, really angry. And I'd have reasons like, it's because I'm Asian. This is why I didn't book it, or this or that. Not jealousy, but envy. It was envy because I never begrudged people for getting work. I just wished it were me. You know what I mean? And I spent an awful lot of time wallowing in anger and being frustrated, and you know, it was just like, and that's cool for like maybe 5 minutes because you vent and you find people and you can vent about the same things and it's out there. But ultimately, in the end, I found that it was a real waste of energy because nothing productive really can come from that other than the initial release. We all need that every once in a while. But when you stay there, it poisons your soul. It poisons everything. And it is one of these things where it's like, if I'm going to expend energy, I'd rather expend energy on something that will be far more rewarding.
Nice.
By supporting somebody, by building a network of friends, by building somebody up, by being kind. That kind of improvement, that kind of expenditure of energy for me is a better value. And all because other people benefit from it. And when you make other people happy, I find it makes me happy, right? It's the simplest way. Now, there are people who are out there who are so broken, they find joy in making people sad or miserable, right? Those are trolls. And you have professional trolls who are literally being paid money to go through and like write nasty reviews critically. There's you know, because negativity gets clicks. These horrible things. That's why these stereotypes are continually being perpetuated about fans being rabid. Fan is short for fanatic, didn't you know? And there's nothing worse in Star Wars than the fans, or in any of these other things. And it's like, yeah, there's a subsect of people who will never be happy, who will always find fault. But anybody who really takes the time to go online to like air their grievances and just go into this huge diatribe and gatekeep about something and write nasty things about other things based on their own personal opinion, they're broken. There's other things that you could, like, you spent all that time railing on a show that is about plastic spacemen. You know, that is, if you identify and that is, you find validation in that, and that's how you identify as a human being through that, okay, that's fine. You might want to take a breath and realize that there are other people in the equation. There are other human beings, the people who make it, the people who work there. No one is out to get you and upset you because the knee pads are upside down on one costume, and how dare they, because they've ruined your childhood now, right?
That's crazy.
No, and that's the thing, and I get it that people are invested in this, and it's my whole childhood, and it's like, well, they've, you hear that term, they've raped my childhood. It's like, good Lord,
Whoa.
how sad is that?
Yeah.
That you honestly think that a version of something that you enjoyed as a child, because it was executed poorly, in your opinion, has somehow violated the sanctity of your child. It's like, no, your childhood is your childhood. Nothing's going to change that.
Yeah.
Bad or good, right? So don't make ridiculous statements like that. But like, people have a flair for the dramatic because it sounds ridiculous. It's funny sometimes. And so they just keep going. And what a lot of people are noticing too, negative energy or negative attention is the same as getting attention. They don't care if it's positive or negative. They just want that attention. And so for me, one of the big things is I just refuse to engage with trolls. That's kind of negativity, that's how you get rid of a troll. Just don't feed it. Because as soon as you engage, they've won. Because you've given them they've gotten your attention. And even if it is a snarky response or a reply, they go, oh, I got them. I got them to pay attention to me. And then they double down and, go hard with the attack. Or they sit back and they gloat. And they go, ha, look what I did. And they reshare and they do it. Like people posting pics of like, look who blocked me on Twitter or X or whatever. And it's
not
like,
a good thing.
Yeah, it's like you sit there and go, are you really that proud of it? Okay, that's good. Makes me a bit sad that that's the accomplishment, that you upset somebody so much that they chose to cut you off. But it is what it is, and I get it. Like things have been hard since the pandemic, and things continue. Like we're coming out of it, but things economically, socially, there's a lot of conflict, a lot of really crazy things happening on in the world, and it seems like you can't support one thing without supporting the other. Like, if you support this, we've become so polarized that it's like black or white, and there's no room anymore for just to have an opinion without somebody like accusing you of something else. And so like for me, that's why I also just want to engage just in the positivity, because that's something that I can do, that I have control over. My energy, what I tend to put out there in my own little way, is to send that out. And it's like in the Marvel universe, like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, he's not saving the world. He's helping out individuals in the neighborhood. He's having that local sort of impact, right? And he's not out there trying to save the universe, because that's not who Spider-Man is, right? He's New York's protector. He goes and he does that. He doesn't try to go beyond that.
Yeah. He helps his direct environment, the controllables.
And that's for me, it's just like, and as I've gotten older too, it's one of those things where you go, there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so much energy I have too. As I've gotten older, time has become more precious. My father has taken ill, and so it's one of those things where you're like, okay, and because before, I have 2 kids, and my eldest, he's 19. It's like, oh my God, I remember when I was carrying him, changing his diapers, and that seemed like yesterday. 19 years in a flash. And so what do you want to do with your time? How do I want to spend my time? I don't want to engage with people who refuse to listen, who just want negative attention and this and that. No, I don't want to play that game. And so I disengage, and I would rather pay attention and give focus to those who will grow, who want that positivity, who will share that kindness and positivity too. Let's grow that instead. Let's start that movement. Let's make being kind and being generous and shifting that perspective on that. Let's do that instead. Because then if people see that's more en vogue in the media or whatever, if we focus on that, more and more people will do that then, man.
I agree. I think it changes the whole game. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying I'm the solution whatsoever with what I'm about to say, but we've got very similar philosophy. We're like Team Human. We want to kind of, help those that want to like rise above the negativity or whatever it is, just to feel loved. That's what love does. And, part of this podcast is often when I'm like interviewing a guest, for example, not all the time, there'd be a lot of questions like, what was it like working with so-and-so? And it all became like clickbaity stuff. And I despise that. And look, if that's the channel and people tune in and they love it, that's great. It's just not for me. And I realized earlier on that, and then sometimes the clickbait would be out of context comments, and that would get a lot of views. And I came to the conclusion that, you can be in that negativity space or whatever just to get the views, but it's such a short-term outlook. Love, I know how wanky that sounds, but building people up, love, sharing, I call it an abundance mindset, rising together, that leads to long-term success. And it also changes the media model of it's us against them and blah, 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 blah. So now I won't clickbait, take things out of context. I try not to do the things that I despise, because how nice would it be? And I don't want to talk about governments or media or whatever, but how nice would it be if the news was this happened, but this is a positive that came out of it, instead of just focusing on the negativity that brings us all down. So when you do for example, a YouTube channel, that is actually a very positive change to the world, because it's showing people, whether they had a community or not, that you can thrive together, and that it seems to be rare, and it shouldn't be rare. That's my rant.
There you go.
Yeah,
bravo.
We've done it. We've saved the world. So
just one little bit at a time.
Exactly.
That's it. One bite at a time.
And I like that you bring up the Spider-Man. What resonates for me is that, he deals with his controllables within his environment. And it's nice to like want to save the world, but also being responsible for yourself and being responsible for your environment. And that's part of the reason why Spider-Man's become the legend that he is as well.
Right on.
Is he one of your favorites?
He's one of the guys growing. I will confess, growing up, wasn't a real big superhero guy.
Oh, interesting.
Right? It's like, oh, you're a nerd though. It's like, superheroes, not as much my job. I love sci-fi stories, actual humans in those without superpowers, I think sort of drew me. Spider-Man I love because it was the animated series in Canada. Spider-Man voiced by Paul Soules, who's a Canadian actor. That was same production company. They did Rocket Robin Hood as well, same animation company. And that was, as a child growing up, I consumed so much media, so much television. So cartoons, that was television's how I learned how to speak English. My parents, they were always, they just spoke Korean and they were working. And so like the television was my babysitter, my best friend. I watched so many inappropriate things on that thing, but I learned so much from it as well, right? So watching shows like Sesame Street, Electric Company, but then similarly shows like Lost in Space, Space 1999, Star Trek, a lot of Westerns, The Gunslinger, Rifleman, Bonanza, you name it. It was just like this whole smorgasbord of different kinds of shows. And that's why I loved storytelling, right? And there weren't a ton of superhero shows, except for Batman, which I found a bit too cheesy. Even as a kid, I found it a bit too cheesy. But no disrespect no disrespect to Adam West and Burt Ward and that great series, but it's just Batman never spoke to me for whatever reason. But Commander Koenig on Moonbase Alpha, flying around in that Eagle transport with Alan Carter, I was like, oh my god, okay, this is, even though it's like one of the most slower paced, because it was a British show, right? So it was a very cerebral, not action oriented like Star Trek was, very cerebral. Space 1999, but I loved the aesthetic, the design, the fact they were humans, thrust in these really weird situations, and that's why I think I like Star Trek too.
Yeah.
But ironically, my favorite character was Mr. Spock, because he was of two worlds. He was half human, half Vulcan, right? Too human to be accepted on Vulcan, too Vulcan to be accepted on Earth. Where did he fit in? Constant conflict with himself. And as a child of immigrant parents, that's how I felt. Living in Canada, too Korean looking to be accepted as a Canadian, too Canadian to be accepted as a Korean. Split between two worlds, I was a pariah, and I was always sort of constantly struggling. In Star Trek, Spock chose to be a Vulcan, to embrace non-emotion, and to follow the tenets of being a Vulcan. For me, which I want the opposite way. Like I want to be Canadian. I don't want to be Korean. I don't want to know any of the customs. I don't want to eat any of the food. I don't want to speak any language. I am Canadian and stuff. And so yeah, you have this. Instead of embracing both worlds and finding a way to have them both together, again, it was polar. It was like this or that, never both, right? And that's one of my biggest regrets, is not leaning into my heritage more, because I feel like I've lost out on a lot of my parents' history, which is a shame, because especially as I've gotten older, I've lost my ability to communicate with them effectively, because my Korean is terrible, right? And I wish I had, along with the piano lessons, I wish I had stuck with it.
I get that.
Who knows?
That resonates.
Right? So
I've heard you on other podcasts talk about, the regret side. And it's really interesting because it was kind of similar to me. My parents are also immigrants, of like embracing their culture, but it's not as rich as yours, for example. It's not a competition. And also just hearing people like talk about the regrets, I wished I embraced this. And it's, it's interesting because we want to fit in, and we as a child, we do it in all different degrees. And then I'm also of the belief, and I'm not taking away from experience as well, sometimes also going through that, it makes you embrace and appreciate your family even more and the experience. And so I understand the regret, obviously, but there's also that side of now you able, because you speak about it now passionately as you should, and you've spoken about it even when you won all your awards and stuff like that. You've now been able to appreciate it even more through that regret. Am I putting words in your mouth, or
no? That's 100%. I mean, and that's the best thing to come from that, is a lesson learned from that. And I've said this before too. It's like my entire life I spent pushing away my personal history, like my heritage, my parents' heritage. And how ironic is it that the biggest accolades and the biggest launching pad of my career and my life has come from playing a Korean immigrant, and so I've become very, very aware of that. And I tell my kids too, it's like, it's okay to fail. Failure is the best teacher. I don't understand why everybody thinks it's such a bad thing, or it's such a dirty word. It's like, oh, don't say fail. We can't fail them at school. It's like, no, fail them. If they don't meet the requirements, they have failed. There's no shame in that. That's how they learn. Because when if you put in a half-assed effort and everybody goes, oh, okay, no, it's okay, we'll pump it up. You didn't fail. It's like you're just setting them up to fail even harder later on, because the real world doesn't give a rat's ass. The real world will chop you up and spit you out without so much of an afterthought, because we've not been conditioned. We have not learned from our failures, because we've never failed, right? Even though, and that's the thing, you've just enabled people to just sort of live so sheltered in their lives and existence, where they think, oh, well, it's fine, that's enough, because it's always been enough before. And it's like, no, you're learning bad habits. And so, and I coach a baseball, like I'm a coach on a baseball team too, and I say to the boys too, it's like, that's the part of baseball, is like you're going to fail. At least a successful baseball player fails 70% of the time, right? If you have a success rate of 30%, you're on fire. That's great. But it's one of those things where, that's how you learn, when you get your ass handed to you, when you make that mistake, because you will never forget it. And it's that whole, the more humiliating an experience is, the more you will remember and probably never, ever want to experience it, for good or bad.
Yeah.
But it is something that will leave a mark, an indelible mark, and you will always remember. But then it's how do you deal with that feeling, those feelings that come along with it? Do you wallow? Do you avoid? Do you choose to learn from it and build on that and learn to forgive yourself and move on? Or do you just keep beating yourself and wallowing it, or blame others, or hide from it, or this or that. I mean, that's the thing. The consequences of our actions, how do we deal with them? And it's hard sometimes to actually do the thing you need to do to grow, to move on. It's really hard sometimes.
Agreed.
But what helps you grow the most? How will you benefit the most from that failure? And will you learn from it, or will you make this, and that's heartbreaking when you keep making the same mistakes. You have not learned from that. That's heartbreaking for me.
It's really interesting. A lot of things spring to mind. There's also the courage factor and, being brave. And sometimes being brave it's actually not about being brave. Let's see how I can phrase this. If you keep on making the same mistake, you're not necessarily enabling that courage because you're scared of doing something else. But by not embracing the courage, you're going to repeat the same mistake, if that makes sense. And so, it comes down to dealing with our emotions. And I was very lucky. I had this lady on the podcast, Bronnie, where she's written an international best-selling book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I think the number one regret, she would interview people about to die who are of sound mind. And one of the number one regrets was, I wish I lived the life that I wanted to live and not the life I thought other people wanted me to live, something like that. And we all have that. And that's one of the core reasons why we're scared to actually put ourselves out there. And I already was along this line of thinking, but the idea of regrets, I don't want my life to be governed by regrets. I don't want to sit on my deathbed and be like, why didn't I do this? And so by not actually applying for something, whether it's joining the toy class or joining baseball, I will have if I want to do it, I'll have massive regrets later on for not doing it. So therefore, it's just something you have to do because, as you said, I'm just rambling, but I don't want to have those regrets. And it's actually very simple to do it in terms of that brave aspect, putting your hand up and saying, you know what, I can do this. I can actually have fun. I don't need to be the world's best baseball player, but by doing that, you don't need to go back and sit back and go, you know what, I didn't do it. And then that builds up on the emotions, all the stuff that you're saying. So I think it's really crucial that you address the emotion side, that, we can do it and not to look back at the regrets. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So this also stems into, acting, for example.
Yeah.
And rejection is the name of the game. Sometimes you might be a bit low in confidence. You might not feel you gave your best performance. So I'm wondering how you deal on that side, because you've been rejected. Everyone has 10,000 times to a few times.
That's a low number.
Yeah.
That's a low number too. No, like hundreds of thousands. No, that's part of it. Part of it is handling the rejection. Part of it is knowing or coming to the realization that there are times where you can do nothing wrong and still not get the part. There are things that are out of your control. So you might think, oh, that's a terrible performance or this or that. There are so many different factors in terms of getting cast or somebody deciding who gets a part. It could be as simple a thing as, for example, skin tone, right? Something ridiculous. I remember getting cast for a Disney movie, and they were back and forth and humming and hawing, and I almost lost this part. But I eventually got it because the skin tone for the kid who was playing my daughter, our skin tone matched. It had nothing to do with performance, right? And so there are certain things, there are controllables that you have, you can definitely work on, like how prepared are you? Have you made strong choices? Have you done your homework when you go in? How do you present well? And you could have the best audition in the world, but there might be somebody that goes, that's great, but you know what? We're going to go with this kind of a family instead. And so you're out of the running. Simple little thing, or even it could be as stupid as, I didn't like their shirt. Next, right? Like you don't know. So in terms of the rejection, it's good. You'll know if it's a good audition or not. You control what you can control. You go in, you do your job, The rest is up to somebody else. You don't make, all you can do to affect their decision is to make it harder for them not to cast you. You know what I mean? So you bring what you can bring in. Everything else is out of your hands. So you got to let that go. Once you leave that room, you let that go, and you have to flush it. You have to just forget about it and move on. Because if it's unhealthy to dwell and to like hang on and go, please, 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 please. And I've been there. There have been roles when I was younger, especially. I was like, oh my God, please, I need this part. I want this part. I'm going to die if I don't get this part. And I don't get the part. And you're upset and you're sad, but you don't die, right? There are other roles, other things. What you do is you build on that and you have to learn. That's the name of the game. It's like baseball. Really, like you're going to fail more times than you succeed. But when you succeed, it's going to be big, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it. It's just building up the mentality, the mental fortitude of knowing. And some people, they can't take it anymore. And I get it. And they tend to dwell on the negativity. And it's like everything else. It can wear on you. The more you just sort of think about it, it wears on you. You might not be aware of it, but it's there, right? And that's why it's good to sort of try to stay balanced and healthy about it. Control what you can control, do your best work, and just leave it. And if you book the part, that's amazing, right? Keep going. But if you don't, you move on. Next, that role has been cast. Next. Thinking about what could have been, what should have been, is a waste of time because it hasn't happened. So you need to move on. And that's part of it too, is learning to just move forward. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Build, learn. There are times where you have just a shitty audition too. I've had a fair number of those where I just gone in and gone blank and gone, wow, that was embarrassing. I've done a theater audition where I just shit the bed. And it was just like, and it was embarrassing. And the director, God bless his soul, got up and said, here, you can read this. And I was just so flustered by that point. I couldn't even read it properly, and this isn't when I was young. This is when I was already an established actor on a television series auditioning for a Shakespeare in the Park. And it got in my head and I was so embarrassed. And it was just I was just appalled. And I think the kids call it cringe. It was such a cringe audition, right? Like it couldn't have been worse if I tried. But you learn from that and you forgive yourself and you move on.
See, I feel this comes with a lot of experience as well. And I'm glad that you bring that up because we're all human. It doesn't matter how established we are. We still, have our blank spots. I do it all the time. And that aspect of just being able to let go, feel the emotions is important.
Yeah.
The audition didn't go well for whatever reason or whatever, but to be able to let go and forgive, that is such a crucial word.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's been a journey, especially some of the stuff you said earlier on of being able, especially all actors at the best of time when they first start to where they are now, there's a journey of being able to just go, this is the game. Yeah. Has it been a experience for you in that regard? Has it been easy for you?
It's been crazy. Like, honestly, before I get onto that though, there's a saying that the head coach of the team says, wonderful man, and it's so smart. It's like, live in the moment, learn in the moment, move on from the moment, right? That's for a baseball kid. That's what, because when you make an error, right? You live in it, you can feel it, you learn from it, and then you move on from it.
Yeah.
Because it's done now. And so that's in the past, right? So you learn from it and you move on. But yeah, my experiences as an actor, oh my God, I cannot believe it's been crazy. Like pinch me, I'm dreaming crazy. Things that I never, when I started off as a young actor, I thought, because I was sheltered and I was in school and everybody got parts and this and that. But when I went into the professional world, it was just the types of roles that were, again, it's opportunity that I had the opportunity to audition for were very, very, very firmly entrenched in the color of my skin and my ethnicity. So only Asian parts, right? or parts in Canada or in America, when you have a casting breakdown and it has a list of all the characters, and oftentimes they'll have brackets as descriptors beside the character's name, and they'll say, open to all the ethnicities, right? So it's like, oh, that I hated that term. It's like, okay, these are the parts we all get to, because if it didn't have that, that meant the default ethnicity was Caucasian.
Okay. Yeah.
So that meant, oh, I'm not allowed to audition for this, or this, even though in the character breakdown, I could do that. I fit this, like Joe, 25 years old, right? Goes, popular guy at school, blah, 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 blah. It's like nothing about their ethnicity, but it's like, wow. But because it doesn't have that, I couldn't even audition for those, right? And it's like, it was also the whole like, oh, there's the one Asian character in the show or whatever. Can't have another one because we already got one. We don't want people to get confused, right? Or we already have a black best friend. So that's horrible. Oh, it's ridiculous. I'm talking like 90s, early 90s. It was just like, I go to auditions and it'd be like, okay, so just put on an Asian accent for us. We just want add a little bit of color. And like,
that's a very broad statement.
Oh yeah, it's like,
put
okay,
an
so
Asian accent.
Yeah, what kind? Chinese, Japanese, where? I don't know, something, in Asia. Like say Chinese, okay, Cantonese, Mandarin. This, just like Asian-y. And it like they just wanted something that sounded so broad and over the top that they didn't care. That's the way it used to be. And so, as a young actor, you're like, fuck, I'm never gonna get cast as a lead in anything. My hair was falling out. So a bit chubby. It's just like, no, I'm not leading man material. Didn't look the part, right? Nobody cares if you can act. Nobody cared. It's because it is a very visual medium, and I get it. I'm not stupid. Like, I get it. But it gets frustrating, and it wears on you. And so for me, it's that whole idea of, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it, Paul? You're not getting these opportunities that you want, but you love to act. So what are you going to do? Are you going to throw a hissy fit and take your ball and go home, do something else? Or are you going to find another way to work? I found another way to work, and for me, it was a shift in perception. I knew I was never going to be a leading man, and the types of roles I was getting were character actors, expositional. So it would be like, okay, I'm not going to be a leading guy. I might be a supporting guy if I'm lucky, but my bread and butter is going to be exposition, character actor. You go in, and so in my mind, it's like, okay, I'm going to be the best character actor I can. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to be precise. I'm going to be clear in my storytelling. I'm going to help move this narrative along, and then I'll disappear. And I became really good at that. But it was also the whole idea of when you are on set, what are you going to do with your time? I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm going to talk to other actors. I'm going to talk to crew. I'm going to do all that. And I'm also going to be prepared and professional. No one is ever going to wait for me because I haven't done my homework and I don't know my lines. I'm going to be kind to people. I'm going to be polite. And I'm going to be memorable in whatever ways I can, right? So you're building up your own professional reputation as a, hey, solid actor, shows up, knows his lines, really nice to everybody. Good team player. And so casting agents, they know that. In productions, you work with a lot of the same crews. Like they get to know you a little bit, as you do that. But really, I mean, I thought, well, I'm acting, I'm happy. And so am I getting the types of parts I really, really want? No, but I was working and I'm growing and the parts are getting bigger, which is great. And then, Kim's Convenience came along and everything went batshit crazy after that, because Kim's Convenience was like, that show really launched all of our careers, to be honest, because we were given the opportunity to play human beings, not caricatures. We weren't stereotypes, we were archetypes. It was that we finally had that opportunity to play not a hyper idealized model minority. We were human beings who were very culturally specific, but in that specificity came universality. right? The relationships between family, regardless of culture, are pretty much the same in any culture, right? And so it was those opportunities to finally be able to show what we could do that opened up a lot of people's eyes. And that was a thing. Like Star Wars came from Kim's Convenience. You know, Dave Filoni, his wife Anne, she saw Kim, said, "You got to watch this." He watched it, loved it, and reached out through a mutual friend of ours, Deborah Chow. I worked with in Toronto. She's a director. She directed the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. She was on. She directed episodes of The Mandalorian. Also, little boutique shows like Better Call Saul, Jessica Jones, all these little shows no one's ever heard of. Right?
Yeah, small.
Exactly. And so after that, like it was just it's been a crazy roller coaster ride. And then booking Avatar, The Last Airbender, which they just dropped the trailer yesterday.
I know, I saw it. Wow.
Crazy.
That show has actually influenced one of my shows that I've been writing. And It's amazing. It's probably my show that I've been writing is probably most similar to that because I don't have a comparison point. And it's amazing first of all, so happy for you to hear, the journey and also doing the research as well. I want to backtrack before we get there so we can appreciate the journey even more. Isn't it, despite, I don't know what the right word is, going through that where you feel which is true, very, very limited in the sense of what you can do. And despite, we talked about negativity, which obviously, naturally, we would all have it. But despite that, saying, you know what, I'm not just going to be okay. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to be excellent. I'm going to be the best that I can. Yeah. And that is so rare. In all things, when we put against the wall for unfair reasons, fair reasons, whatever, we can say, this is too much and I'm giving up. And there's no judgment because it's completely understandable.
Yep.
But it made you, well, I'm not going to credit that situation. You made yourself want to be the best that you can be. And I think that is phenomenal. And also you were probably thinking, based on what you said, that what can I actually do in this scope? It would have felt quite limited. And I could only imagine that could be quite scary, that you can only rise to a certain level. You've obviously risen far beyond those levels, but to be able to, sometimes when you feel you can only see yourself at a certain level, what you can get, but despite that, we'll talk about how Convenience came about. That can be rare because you think, oh, I'm just limited to this role and that's all I'm ever going to do, but you still kept on pursuing and pushing.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I say this and I do believe it. It's just, I was just too stupid and too stubborn to quit. When I discovered the craft of acting, I came to it very late. It was university, in fact. And, my parents, and I've said this before many times, immigrant parents, they said to me, I could be 5 things: doctor, lawyer, teacher, engineer, or a failure. So you choose. And so they were not thrilled when I decided, I'm going to apply for the drama program. Right? Like, and I hadn't even gotten in. I said, I'm going to apply for it, thinking that, I'll get in. No problem. And, that's how completely clueless I was of this entire journey. But when I did discover the craft of acting, I was just intoxicated by it because it was so unlike anything else I'd ever had to go to school for. And I had lost the joy, or I'd lost the interest in doing any sort of science whatsoever. I was good at math. I was good at science, but I hated it because it was just so dry. And I was like, I just couldn't get excited over it. Yep. But storytelling, that's my jam. I grew up watching stories. And when I discovered, oh my God, I might be able to get a job telling these stories, performing these stories. Oh my God. Sign me up. So I went and I sucked. I was terrible because I had no experience, but that was great because that's what lit me. That's what kept me motivated. I wanted to get better. And there were a lot of hard roads. Like I was the worst fucking actor in that class, but I kept coming back. And I know the only reason I got in was the color of my skin. was the only Asian kid to audition for that drama program, and I know that had a large part in me getting a bit of an upper leg on it. Now, I will also give myself a little bit of credit and say they saw that there was enough raw material to work with.
I don't think they would just
right?
get you for no reason.
Yeah. But I will say too, and I say this to other people, as the people of color, BIPOC artists, is that it doesn't matter how you got there. It's what you do when you're there to be able to prove people that you belong there. And then that's on you. You have to do the work. You have to work harder and it sucks and it's not fair, but that's the gig. And if you want it, then you got to work for it. Anything worth having that you really want, you got to work. You got to work at it, especially in a field as competitive as it is, you know, in the arts. There are other people who want that part too. Who's going to, they might have more talent than me, but for me, it's like, I cannot afford somebody to outwork me. That's what I can control, right? You can be way better at, like, you know, finding that moment or being present or this or that, but I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to be prepared for any contingency. I'm not going to just sort of look at it and go, yeah, I'll have it on the day, and show up and think, cruise in there and go, well, they'll hire me because I'm Asian and it's an Asian part. And no, I'm going to, you know, never take anything for granted, work at everything. But that's how you stay at the top of your game. Right? It was great. We saw this, there's that famous Allen Iverson quote. He's a basketball player in the NBA, and this is, I'm dating myself, but he was like, he got chastised because he wasn't working hard at practice. And his big press conference was like, practice. We're talking practice. And I get it for him. Sure, he's a multimillionaire. He's an NBA veteran. That's a horrible fucking message.
Oh, horrible. Yeah,
it's horrible. For me, practice how you play. How are you going to expect to elevate your game if you constantly underplay your abilities, right? You need to push yourself and get to that point. You need to challenge yourself, because that's how we improve. If everything's easy, how do you get better at it? It's the same as that's why failure is so good, because it's hard and it makes you better because you want to succeed. Whereas if everything comes easy, look, it's like playing video games. You can set it to super easy where you have full, like 200% shields, invulnerability, infinite ammo, run around, and you're decimating everything, which is, yeah, okay, that's fine. It's good every once in a while, but it gets really boring afterwards and it's not challenging. And so when you do get thrown into a multiplayer game or whatever, you're against somebody and it's equal abilities, and they've been playing and they smoke you because you're so used to having infinite lives and shields and this and that. Like, you cannot get better if you are not pushing yourself to your limits in that sense, right? You need to challenge yourself. And that's why, for me, it was just like, I was so hungry to be better. I just wanted to be better, you know, and learn. And that's a continual thing. And I say to young actors of color as well, it's like, the moment you think you've got everything, you know everything, you don't need to work, just leave. Quit. I'm still learning. I still make huge mistakes. There are times that I struggle with my own work and I go, oh, that sucked. That was so bad. Like, so bad. And it's like, oh, they kept it? People are happy with it? Like, I'm my own worst critic. I do not take compliments well. I'm very, very bad at self-advocating sometimes and just taking that and going, no, I did a good job. I've done it. Like, I'm a good actor. I'm still working on that.
Yeah.
Because I've got the double whammy of being Canadian and Asian growing up. Say sorry for everything. I bump into you. Oh, I'm sorry. That's my fault.
Someone punches you. I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry. You know, it's like, that was amazing. That was a great performance. Yeah, I'm sorry. For what? I kind of feel like I missed that one moment. It's like, oh, fuck. Come on. Take the win. And that's the other thing, is it's good to have a healthy dose of self-confidence and ego. You can be humble. Absolutely, you can be humble. You can be kind. You can be empathetic. You don't have to, but that doesn't mean it should never be at your expense, because you need to value what you bring. You need to self-advocate and give yourself that healthy boost as well, and not just depend on other people to give it to you.
Yeah,
right?
the external versus
Know
the
your
internal.
self-worth. Yeah. And but I struggle with that. I struggle with that still.
We all do.
I still think I'm a worthless piece of garbage sometimes on set.
Well,
It's like,
no one thinks that, so we're going to just put that out there. It's really interesting concept about, embracing our best. You've spoken about how you've worked at it to be able to, thrive, be the best that you can be, and which has allowed you to excel despite some of the horrible other things, unfortunate things that have been, part of this world. But I feel like you would have astronomically improved in the sense of being able to say to yourself, it's almost like you're speaking to your childlike version. So I do it like, you know what, I'm actually good. I make mistakes. I'm human. But being able to just say that, even if it's once in a blue moon, is actually so empowering. And it changes how we see ourselves, changes our brain, it changes our performance. So I imagine this is a newer concept for you where you're embracing, your greatness, or we've all got greatness. I'm not saying that's a big ego thing, but we've all got brilliance within us. Is this something that you've been looking at more recently, or something?
Yeah. It's, because it's one of these things where when I say again, it's okay to be okay with being good. Like, take credit where credit is due. Take ownership, I guess is a word, for the contributions that you make to anything. I've always been, and I'm learning this more and more, but I'd always been like, hey, you know what? I always defer. It's like, oh, that was an incredible performance. Oh, thank you. It's the writing. I really didn't do anything. I just read the pages and this and that. It's my scene partners, and they're the ones carrying me on their back. And there's that. I'm always deferring and building others up while smashing myself down. Right. So, sorry, I just got a call. So it is, and the expense of that is that you're sort of stunting your own sense of self-worth and your own confidence sometimes. And it's hard because I've always been raised to be humble. Be humble, right? Don't rock the boat. Be humble. And I think humility is a great thing, But I also think you can go way too far past that and start sabotaging yourself with that. And the majority of people won't take advantage of you if you're self-deferential. If you did, no, come on.
Like,
but there will be there. I'm sorry.
Like, in your power, like this is who I am and what I'm about.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And just taking credit and saying, yeah, you know what, I did do good work on that. I'm very proud of that work, and thank you very much for that. There will be a subsect of people who will take advantage of that and go, oh my God, this guy, it's so easy to take advantage of this person just because they're so deferential and this and that. And so, like, let's start taking liberties. In business, they do that all the time. If you undervalue yourself, it's going to benefit somebody. Go, hey, that's great. Let's get them at a lower rate. Yep. Or let's keep them, like, we're going to profit, or we're going to build so much off of their backs, and they're never going to take credit for it. And so we're gonna seem like geniuses and this and that. And it's like self-advocating, and then that's a balance that I need to find, is how to self-advocate, how to own, my contributions, and saying there is value to what I bring. I am very good at this. Thank you. And saying, taking credit where credit is due. And it's still hard for me because it feels like I have imposter syndrome. Huge. And it still feels wrong for me to take credit. So that's why I don't take compliments well. It's just like, because I realize too, and it's good to realize this and to talk, to have it out. It's like, nobody performs in a vacuum.
Yeah.
When you're doing a show, there's an entire team of people whose sole job it is to make you look good. Hair, makeup, wardrobe, the script, screenwriters, right? The camera crews, sound department, props, everything. Everybody's focused on making you look good so you can tell this story. And it would be stupid and selfish to not share some of that and say, hey, it's a team effort. This is great. But in that, building everybody else up, you can't undercut your own contribution to that. Say, yeah, that was great. We did this all together. They helped me get to this point. I carried it across. We all did our jobs and we did it well. And that, for me, feels like a better compromise in that sense. Because you have people, yeah, I was great.
I'm amazing.
Yeah. I was amazing in that, and it's like, yeah, your performance can be strong, but it's good to acknowledge as well and it's being grounded for me. It's just like having that foundation of experience, and of knowing like how hard it is to make a good show and how hard it is to get work and how hard it is for things to be successful and to get to places. Had this success come at a younger point in my career, would I have appreciated it as much? I don't think so. And that's the thing. Sometimes you got to go through the ringer. And once you get through the other side, then you really appreciate it and you go, okay. And that's why I say about my career, it's like this kind of success has come relatively later in my career. Like I started acting professionally in 1995. 2016 was my first leading role on a television series, right? That's a long time, right? That's like almost 21, that's 21 years of being in the industry before I finally get a leading part. And then from that point on it's been 7 years since, and the shit that I've been able to do because of that has been crazy. I'm in the Star Wars universe, something that I've loved my entire life. Almost,
yeah.
Right? Avatar: The Last Airbender, another crazy feather in my cap. And oh my God, this is on the well past like 20 years in. So I've had to put in my time. I've slugged it out. And I've eaten a lot of shit sandwiches and I've lost a lot of great parts and I've screwed up some really wonderful parts and stuff. But through that journey, I think I've always tried to be mindful of my surroundings and be grateful for any time I'm on set and have that translate. And really, it was Kim's Convenience when I got my first leading role, number one on the call sheet, that I made it my mission to be the best number one on a set, because I've been on many sets and I've seen some great number ones and some really bad number ones, and it's from the top down. And I thought, for me, this might be the only opportunity I ever get to be the lead actor on a series. I'm going to make sure it's fantastic for everybody. And I'm going to make time for everybody. I'm going to learn everybody's name. We're going to talk. People that come on the show, even for a day, I'm going to spend time with them. I'm going to make people feel valued and seen and heard and important. And it's a lot of extra work, but it's like, if you're the leader, that's the gig and that's how it should be. And you should never be too busy to be kind, to spare a moment to talk to somebody, to just, to let people know thank you. At the end of every day in Kim's Convenience, I went to every casting crew member that I could find and say thank you. Every day. And it's just, and it took a lot of extra time. And I know the ADs were going crazy, saying, you got to get off the clock. And, like wardrobe, they want it. But it was important to me to let people know that I valued them and I loved them and thank you. And it makes it so much more personal and people want to invest more and you get so much better work. And that's not why I did it.
Great.
But that was the side effect of that was just so wonderful that it, like, people would, like, we would run through walls for each other type thing. And even all these years later, I'm working on another show, had a couple of days on a show, a lot of the same crew, and the love is there, the respect, and you just like, hey, how are you? It's great. So these are bonds that are for life, in that sense. And so that's worth building. Those are the relationships that you want to invest in. And that all comes from being kind and also from learning from those mistakes or going through shit and seeing how shitty people get treated or how you get treated.
And learning and
yeah.
breaking the cycle. Sorry for cutting you off. I think that's really important. And not that this is your character whatsoever, but, you would have seen being treated in certain ways and you could have been like, you know what, I'm number one. They had to go through this. Obviously, it's extremely toxic mindset and we do not want to do that. Or you could just, do your role. Just be nice to whoever comes to you. But you went levels above, pillars above. And I think that's, takes, and I'm not trying to blow steam up your ass. I think that changes kind of the game.
Right.
In that you're here to obviously do the best job that you can, but to create and foster an environment where everyone can excel. And I think that's really important.
And it's so funny because it's like, I joke about this. I say it's like the best cheat code in the world. Just be kind. It's amazing. It's amazing what you can do when you're doing that. And why not set people up to succeed? Right? It's just like, how does that, only good can come from that by setting yourself and others up to succeed. Right? And
agreed.
It's a very, we're always stronger together. I think there is strength in that too. And, if you're tired and you need help getting picked up, you've got all these other people willing to do that for you because, if you give to others, they want to give back. And it's a very, very wonderful thing. So
isn't it a nice full circle moment where, the young actor in you was potentially a little bit bitter and it wasn't about that shared success and it was all about, jealousy to now, being the star of a show and doing all these other things as well where you want everyone to thrive. Isn't that a nice like full circle moment to see where you were and where you are now?
Yeah, 100%. And, with the success too, for me, I feel a responsibility as well for the younger generation to bring up as many people as I can, people who still have not gotten the opportunity that I've gotten, right? The BIPOC community here is just, they're still looking for that, for a chance to sort of find their voices, to get their opportunities too. And as I get older and I get a little bit more cachet in terms of name recognition and reputation, to move from acting to producing things or directing things as well, and kicking that door open and bringing up as much of this younger next generation, next wave of talent that otherwise would not have had that opportunity. And for my peers as well, people that I've worked with and gone through the trenches, fought in the trenches with as well, to sort of say, hey, let's work together. Let's get some, I'm doing a show, got a part for you. Come on, let's play. To do things like that as well. I think when you reach a level of success, I think it is incumbent on you to share that. Share the good fortune that you've had. And that's not to say I haven't worked hard on it. It hasn't been horseshoes up my ass. Yes, I've been fortunate, but I've also had to stay ready and, work so that when the opportunity comes, I didn't miss out on it, right? I was always ready for that moment. And so, but I do think as well with any sort of modicum of success, whatever I can use to help others out, to leverage that, use that. You can't take it with you. So let's go. Let's help as many people. And then hopefully that builds more of that mentality of,
success.
Yeah, let's share these successes so we can all celebrate. When one of us wins, we all win type thing. And, I just think, why else then do it? Who wants to be alone on an island with all this money or all this fame, but you're by yourself? What for? There's no purpose to that. It just seems so sad, solitary, right? I would much rather see a bunch of people succeed as well. That's the true joy. That's the true joy.
We rise together and we grow together.
Yeah.
One thing I want to just bring up before we do a quick rapid fire segment is, you mentioned that your parents or your father said that you had 5 options in life.
Yeah.
That moment when you gave him, I think you got a 5K check. That moment when you gave your parents that check. What can you tell me? Can you give me a bit of context on what that felt like?
That was great actually because you know, my dad was deathly afraid that I was going to be destitute, that I was going to die in poverty. His older brother, and I didn't realize this until we had this huge fight while I was in third year university. His older brother was an actor. Didn't know that. He loved his older brother. And I had no idea that he was an actor. But his older brother died in debt. And, you know, a lot of people owed him money. But he was always, you know, the next gig. And, you know, and my dad it just broke his heart. And he was terrified that the same thing was going to happen to me. So he didn't want, like all parents, you don't want your kids to suffer. You don't want your kids to go through and especially, and that's why you see helicopter parents now, they're all like, oh, no, don't avoid my mistakes. Don't make the same mistake. I don't want you to feel that pain. It's like, you kind of have to let them feel that pain because, hey, you turned out okay. So let them learn that because really what we're doing is we're crippling them in terms of being able to deal with failure. Kids nowadays don't know how to deal with it. So, you know, that was the thing. And so when I finally booked this movie of the week and I got my first check, and I'd never seen like that many. Like we grew up, we weren't rich growing up, but my parents are very good at sheltering that. My sister and I from that. We never felt like we were wanting, but we weren't rich. We were, you know, on the lower end of middle class, like very, very, like just on that line there. But we never felt it. And so I'd never seen that much. Like our family was often very much, you know, hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck type thing. And so like to see a check like that, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And that was it. That was the first thing I did was sign it to them because A, my parents still needed the money, right? But B, it was also for me to say to them, thank you. Thank you for putting up with me going through university, wanting to be an actor and this and that, but also to show you that I can make a living. Look at this check. I can make a living. This isn't even for all of my work. This is just my first check for this gig. I can do this. I can do this. And so it was a really proud moment for me to just sort of say, hey. And and then after that, they were on board. They were like, okay, so when's your next gig? You know, like, are you going to be working? You're going to be working, right? And so it was cool. It was cool.
That's wonderful to hear. We're going to do the very quick rapid fire segment. Most of these are fan questions, but to wrap up the podcast. So okay. The first thing that springs to mind, what did Kim Convenience do for your confidence?
It made it was the best thing for my confidence. The best thing. Grew it huge. Made me take risks. Yeah. No, it was just like, are the one-word answers?
No.
It's like, no. Huge. Because he was a fully actualized character. And when I read for him, he was like somebody, like I knew this guy. He was my dad, my uncles, my grandfather. He was like written in such a respectful, loving way. And I was like, I know how to play this. And when I put on that, when I become that character, oh my God, I feel like that's my, you know, my Batman, my Spider-Man. I've got superpowers. And I can make people laugh. I can make people cry. I can inspire people. I can infuriate people, and I can do it all. That's like that he's
And it started from a playwright, which you're involved in. Did you ever think the play would result in, you know, multiple seasons of this great show?
No, you know, you hope, you have blue sky dreams. I remember when I first read for it, there was just 2 scenes, and there was something about the writing, like I said, the way the character was so lovingly written and so authentic that I knew I had to be a part of this. And, you know, it was, and as the play, I mean, I was involved in a number of workshops. I helped develop the character of Appa through these workshops, brought in my own lived experiences and whatnot. And, you know, when it came time to put on stage and it just sort of exploded, you dream about these things. Like, wouldn't it be great if if it made it from the Fringe Festival to the main stages? Wouldn't it be great if it went on a national tour? Wouldn't it be great if it got made into a television show? And all these things happen.
I'm not going to comment there, brilliant, and I'll be very quick. I know that you auditioned and you did the work, but what was it like when the fans were trying to cast you for your role in Avatar?
Oh man, that was so flattering. I mean, I think a lot of it had to do with look, though. You know, people say you were born to play this part, but I think what gave people even more confidence was when they saw my portrayal of Appa and the love that he had, and that was one of the things. I was so flattered. And it was one of those things as well where it's like, but I can never play him because I'm doing Kim's Convenience. And there's no way I'm going to be able to do both. And then, you know, when they say one door closes, another one opens, it's like the premature ending of Kim's Convenience opened that door for me. And then boom. Sometimes, you know, endings can be very bittersweet, but, you know, it's never, it's what you make of it, that experience, and how you choose to remember and reflect on that experience and what you choose to take with you from that experience. And that's influenced almost everything that I've done since.
Brilliant. That was my next question. Before we go, how can people follow you, keep up to date with you, and check out Avatar?
Yeah, you can follow me. I have, I'm on Instagram at Angry Appa. That's my Instagram handle there. So you can follow me on there. That's the one platform that I'm most active on. I used to be active on Twitter. Now it's called X. I find that, again, I'm not on it as often, but when I'm on in spurts. Blue Sky Social, Bitter Asian Dude. On X, I'm at Bitter Asian Dude as well. I have a YouTube channel. Check it out. I do unboxings on Sunday nights, Funboxing Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time in Canada. And the channel's at Bitter Asian Dude Inc. You can do a search and you come up to me on there. And I have a Facebook fan page, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee on Facebook.
Amazing. Those will all be in the episode notes so people can check it out. Thank you so much. I love your forward-moving mindset. It's contagious. And yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. I had a blast. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
I love Paul's brilliant take on building others up. Often in this world, we can resort to lower frequencies such as jealousy, hate, etc., which Paul does talk about experiencing when younger, but coming to the awareness that although venting is healthy, ultimately it does not serve us in the long term. He describes the mentality as a poison and how it can hinder us. He decides to transmute such emotions and experiences and has made it part of his goal to lift others up, to share in the wins, experiences, and love. Ultimately, I believe by focusing on the shared success or love, etc., it is how we change our reality and move forward to a better future. Lifting others up benefits the whole. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. Be the change you wish to see in the world, Gandhi. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.